Imagine diving into an ocean where everything wants to kill you. Not a shark, not a jellyfish, but creatures bigger than buses, with bone-crushing bites, battering ram skulls, and teeth built like steak knives. Welcome to the Western Interior Seaway, a prehistoric ocean that once split North America in half and turned it into the most dangerous swimming pool in Earth's history. Here, 50-foot mosasaurs hunted with the speed of torpedoes, crocodiles the size of vans waded in the shallows to crush turtles and dinosaurs. Giant squid-like monsters drifted through the depths, and sharks with blades for teeth tore through anything that moved. There was no safe zone, not in the deep, not near the shore. This wasn't just a sea, it was hell's aquarium. And if you think you're safe just because it's gone, think again. Between dry land and the open ocean, which would you choose? If you're like most people, you'd probably pick land without hesitation. There's just something about deep water that unnerves us. And history backs that fear, because at almost every point in time, the ocean has hosted creatures far more terrifying than anything walking on land. One documentary, Sea Monsters, made a chilling list of the 10 most dangerous seas in history. It featured Jurassic waters filled with massive plesiosaurs, oceans infested with giant sea scorpions and cephalopods, and prehistoric depths haunted by the largest sharks ever known. But none of those compared to one legendary body of water from the late Cretaceous period. A place so loaded with terrifying marine giants that it makes today's sharks look like goldfish. If you think the modern ocean is scary, brace yourself. Welcome to the Western Interior Seaway, or as some like to call it, hell's aquarium. It might sound unfamiliar, but if you live in the United States, Canada, or Mexico, there's a good chance you've walked right across the ancient seabed it left behind. This was once a shallow inland sea that split North America in half, forming two vanished continents, Laramidia to the west, and Appalachia to the east. This ancient sea existed for about 34 million years, from the early Cretaceous around 100 million years ago, until the very beginning of the Paleocene, 66 million years ago. And while it was dangerous throughout, the worst era came during the Campanian Age, between 84 and 72 million years ago. Imagine a tropical, shallow sea stretching 970 kilometers wide and more than 3,200 kilometers long. Though not especially deep, averaging just 50 meters, with some parts reaching 900 meters, this relatively small sea hosted a truly absurd lineup of monsters. Many of them bigger, faster, and scarier than anything on land. Let's start with the stars of the show, the Mosasaurs. These weren't dinosaurs, but enormous marine reptiles, kind of like supersized, aquatic monitor lizards. They had paddle-shaped limbs and long, streamlined bodies built for slicing through the water. Some swam like eels, while others, especially the later species like Mosasaurus, swam like sharks, using their massive tail flukes to propel themselves at alarming speed. In the Western Interior Seaway, Mosasaurs weren't just present, they ruled. Over a dozen species coexisted here, ranging in size from 2 meters all the way up to a terrifying 18 meters in length. And if you happened to run into one, odds are it would have been one of 3 dominant types: Clydaests, Platycarpus, or Tylosaurus. Clydaests was the smallest of the 3, though still massive, about 6.2 meters long, similar to the biggest recorded great white sharks. Its slender build made it agile and quick, perfect for darting after fish and invertebrates in the shallows. While it may not have been gunning for human-sized prey, its bite would still be devastating. Worse, it could probably survive in fresh water too, meaning there was really no safe zone. Platycarpus stepped things up a notch, measuring around 7 meters and weighing about 1 ton, similar to a fully grown Nile crocodile. You'd think this would make it a serious threat, but surprisingly, its teeth were quite fragile. Paleontologists believe it specialized in hunting smaller fish and soft-bodied prey like squid, mostly sticking to deeper waters. Then there's the heavy hitter Tylosaurus. This beast could grow up to 16 meters long and was built like a predator from a nightmare. And like Platycarpus, it had robust, curved, serrated teeth made for ripping through large prey. It was the apex predator of its time, attacking anything it wanted, including its own kind. In fact, one fossil shows a Tylosaurus fatally ramming another Mosasaur's skull, shattering it on impact. But that's not all. The infamous Mosasaurus, namesake of the group, could grow even larger, up to 17 meters and weigh over 10 tons. While it didn't have the head-ramming weapon of the Tylosaurus, it had something just as lethal, one of the most powerful bites in prehistoric history. Its skull was oversized for its body, packed with massive blade-like teeth featuring dual cutting edges and crystalline structures that enhanced grip. Studies estimate its bite force reached up to 16,000 psi, about 4 times stronger than a saltwater crocodile's. Both Tylosaurus and Mosasaurus were stealth killers, ambushing prey with bursts of speed and incredible vision. And like sharks, they didn't rely on smell. They used sharp binocular vision to detect motion and shape in the murky depth sand when they struck. There was no escape. But as terrifying as the Mosasaurs were, they weren't the only monsters cruising through these ancient waters. Another aquatic predator made its mark on the Western Interior Seaway, and this one wasn't a reptile. It was a crocodilian, not just any crocodilian either. This was Dasuchess, a name that literally means terrible crocodile. And trust me, it earned it. Dasuchess wasn't just big, it was a tank. While its size varied depending on which side of the seaway it lived on. Those on the western side were massive, sometimes reaching lengths of 12 meters, about 39 feet. That's not quite as long as the biggest Mosasaurs, but Dasuchess made up for it with bulk and brute force. It was extremely robust, heavily built, and possibly weighed over 8.5 tons. And unlike Mosasaurs, which had relatively sleek bodies, Dasuchess came armored. Its skin was covered in osteoderms, bone-like plates embedded in its hide that served as natural armor. But these weren't your typical croc scutes. Dasuchess had huge, hemispherical osteoderms, some so big that when paleontologists first unearthed them, they thought they belonged to an armored dinosaur like ankylosaurs. These thick plates didn't just protect it, they also provided muscle attachment points that allowed it to walk more easily on land, at least for short distances. But what really made Dasuchess terrifying wasn't its armor or size, it was its bite. This animal had a massive skull shaped like an alligator's, broad and flat with exceptionally strong jaw muscles. According to fossil reconstructions and muscle analysis, its bite force may have exceeded 100,000 newtons. For perspective, that's more than 5 times the force needed to crush a car, more than a T-Rex, even. Its front teeth were sharp for gripping, while the back teeth were blunter, perfect for crushing hard prey like marine turtles, giant fish, and even dinosaurs that ventured too close to the water's edge. In other words, the shores and shallow bays of the seaway were not safe places. If the open water didn't get you, Dasuchess might be lurking where the waves met the land. But let's wade back into the deeper waters, because they weren't safe either, not even close. That's where we meet some of the strangest and least understood creatures of this prehistoric seascape, the cephalopods. Specifically, giant shelled creatures called ammonites, ancient relatives of modern squid and octopuses. While today's squids tend to be deep-sea dwellers, Cretaceous cephalopods had a broader range and were often found in shallow waters as well. They looked bizarre, almost like stubby, muscular squid with spiraled shells, and some of them grew absolutely enormous. Among them, the most massive was Plesosaurus, the largest known ammonite, and the heaviest cephalopod in Earth's history. This creature wasn't built for stealth or speed, but for sheer size. Its coiled shell alone could reach over 2 meters, 6.5 feet across. The rest of its body, mostly soft tissue, fit inside the shell's open chamber. What did a creature like Plesosaurus do all day? Honestly, no one knows for sure. Since all of its close relatives are extinct, its daily life remains a mystery, but we can make some guesses. Like modern squid, it probably used jet propulsion to move, expelling water to scoot through the sea. Some researchers believe it could release ink, just like modern cephalopods, to confuse predators. It may also have had up to 10 tentacles lined with suction cups, which it used to grab small prey fish, crustaceans, or even other cephalopods. The shell was made of calcium carbonate, much like snails, and offered some protection, though not enough to save it from the mosasaurs or large predatory sharks. Yes, there were sharks too, and they were nothing to scoff at. While they might not have been the apex predators in this ecosystem, they were still formidable. Some were scavengers, some were hunters, but a few were bold enough to take on the big guys. One of the most terrifying was a shark known as Crocodiles, sometimes nicknamed the Ginsu shark because of its slicing, serrated teeth. Though smaller than the Mosasaurs, usually topping out around 7 meters 23 feet, this shark packed a punch. Fossil evidence shows that it hunted other predators, including Mosasaurs, Plesosaurs, and large fish. In fact, some Mosasaur fossils have been found with bite marks that match Cretaceous teeth exactly. So how did a shark take on animals that were longer and heavier? Speed. This shark was fast, estimated to swim at speeds of up to 70 kilometers per hour, 43 miles per hour. That's as fast as some modern highway traffic. Combine that with rows of razor-sharp teeth, and you've got a high-speed torpedo capable of inflicting catastrophic injuries in a single hit. And it wasn't alone. Another smaller but equally deadly shark was Squalocorax, better known as the crow shark. While it typically maxed out at around 5 to 6 meters 16 to 20 feet, it was cunning and had excellent vision, perfect for tracking flying reptiles like pteranodons when they dipped too low for a fish. Squalocorax's teeth were numerous, curved, finely serrated, and ideal for slicing through tough tissue. Fossils of this shark have been found alongside the remains of fish, sea turtles, and even airborne prey, making it one of the most versatile killers in the seaway. But perhaps the most bizarre predator of all was something called the Zyactinus, a monstrous bony fish that was somehow even creepier than the sharks. So far, we've covered reptilian giants, armored crocodiles, monster squids, and shark assassins. But few things in the Western Interior Seaway were as outright disturbing as the bony fish known as Zyactinus. Think of a creature the size of a car, with the face of a nightmare, and a mouth that could swallow you whole, literally. Zyactinus wasn't sleek or elegant like today's tuna or swordfish. It was a bulky, thick-bodied predator that grew between 5 and 6 meters 16 to 20 feet in length. Its mug, yes, mug is the only fitting word, was wide, blunt, and deeply sloped back, making it look permanently angry, but that ugly face was built for a reason. Its jaws were incredibly flexible, allowing them to stretch wide open and engulf prey almost half its own size. That's not speculation. We found fossils of Zyactinus with entire fish preserved inside their stomachs, still mostly intact. In fact, one specimen died because it tried to swallow a fish that was too big, choking on its meal and going belly up. Talk about instant karma. And just when you thought we'd reached the end of this prehistoric freak show, there was still one more iconic group gliding through these cursed waters, the Plesosaurs. These long-necked marine reptiles had four powerful flippers, giving them an almost otherworldly way of swimming like they were flying underwater. They weren't newcomers either. Plesosaurs had been around long before the Western Interior Seaway even formed, but during the late Cretaceous, they hit their peak. Some of the most famous species included Elasmosaurus and Albertonectes, both of which grew up to 11.6 meters 38 feet long. But the true spectacle wasn't their total size, it was their necks. These creatures had the longest necks of any known animal, living or extinct. Elasmosaurus alone had over 70 vertebrae in its neck, more than double that of a giraffe. At first glance, they might seem terrifying. But in truth, plesiosaurs weren't apex predators like the mosasaurs or sharks. Their long necks weren't designed for attacking large animals, they were adapted for precision. These creatures specialized in hunting small, agile prey, snapping up fish, squid, snails, and other invertebrates with quick strikes. Picture this, a plesiosaur gliding silently through the water, its long neck weaving back and forth like a snake, scanning the shallows. The moment a fish wandered too close, that game over. Some scientists even believe the shape of their jaws created a natural fish trap, capturing prey before it even realized what was happening. But despite their relatively tame diet, plesiosaurs were still highly effective hunters and incredibly diverse. Dozens of species have been identified across the globe, showing just how successful their design was. And yet, it all came to an end. Around 66 million years ago, the age of sea monsters and the Western Interior Seaway itself was over. No one knows the exact order in which these creatures disappeared. But many seem to have slowly declined before the final blow was delivered, the Cretaceous Paleogean extinction event. This was the moment a massive asteroid slammed into Earth, causing wildfires, tsunamis, climate collapse, and the eventual downfall of the dinosaurs. But it didn't just wipe out life on land. The oceans suffered too. Plankton populations crashed, coral reefs died, and the food chain and the water collapsed almost overnight. For top-tier predators like mosasaurs, sharks, and plesiosaurs, The world they ruled just disappeared. As the dust settled, the Western Interior Seaway drained away, leaving behind fossil-rich sediments across North America. Today, we find their remains embedded in ancient limestone, sandstone, and chalk, reminders that this part of the world was once home to a nightmare aquarium beyond imagination. But don't think the ocean became peaceful after that. Nature had more horrors in store. In fact, millions of years later, North America gave rise to a dolphin with spear-like teeth, a predator that hunted like a swordfish and stabbed prey in high-speed strikes. So even though Hell's Aquarium is gone, the sea remains full of surprises. What makes the Western Interior Seaway so special isn't just its monsters, it's the way they all coexisted. It was a rare moment in Earth's history when so many apex predators, from so many evolutionary backgrounds, shared the same ecosystem. Marine reptiles, giant sharks, monstrous crocs, fish with gaping jaws, and shelled behemoths all lived and fought in the same stretch of shallow water. It's hard to imagine what it must have felt like to swim in that world. The constant threat of being bitten, crushed, impaled, or swallowed whole wasn't just possible, it was practically guaranteed. No matter where you went in the open water, the reefs, the estuaries, something had teeth, something was hungry. And that's why this place wasn't just deadly, it was thalassophobia on steroids. A perfect storm of evolution and ecology, a prehistoric sea where nightmares weren't just real, they were everywhere. So, the next time you're at the beach, looking out over the waves, just be grateful that the only thing you might step on is a jellyfish, because 80 million years ago, stepping into the ocean meant stepping straight into Hell's Aquarium.